Book 3. The Council of the Ages. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. One of the most extraordinary and of crucial importance for the history of Almera was the arrival of the embassy of Baudolania to hire the services of the Blue Phoenix. History of Almera Volume 3. Author, Mariana Spelin. Reginald I of Arceus walked with his divinity in some strange gardens. It was quite an honor, since few were invited to such rooms in the palace. The king of Arceo knew about the existence of this place for 2 years, when he was invited for the first time and was totally amazed. It was the place where his divinity dealt with the most important and confidential matters. In that beautiful garden all was quiet and peaceful, though false, since none of the plants and shrubs that decorated the place were really alive. It was the curse of his divinity in his exile. His divinity could create any landscape, city or castle, but devoid of life, so he wanted to return to Sharnaries. He needed life, with all its power, and life was something he did not control, he could only aspire to corrupt it. Fortunately there were always beings in Sharnaries willing to follow him in exchange for power, and although he was banished on another plane, his influence made his followers, if they faithfully comply with his orders, receive the benefits of being at his service. Reginald was one of the oldest members of society among mortals. He had always carried out all his orders without hesitation. That is why he had rewarded him by crowning him as King of Arceo, even though he was a descendant of a miserable couple of serfs who took care of the royal stable far from the capital. Reginald was one of the key members of the society since the death of Fedorus. He was the one he trusted the most. Even so, his divinity knew that the key to the success of his plan was that no one knew exactly in its entirety. They only had to know the part that each member of the society should perform. They both walked through the garden without saying a word, and it was complicated since they both knew that time was a commodity that had to be disposed of efficiently. There is little time left for his return. Certainly. Do you know how much Sharnaries I miss? This is not a crude copy. The king of Arceo looked at a flower and picked it up to examine it. It was so real, you could even smell a delicate scent. But that's it, but they are not like Sharnaries, something is missing. That's right. And with all your power you cannot give it to him? His divinity moved away for a moment. Another person to say that same phrase would be vaporized at once, but the monarch of Arceo had a certain wide sleeve. There is always someone more powerful. It is difficult for a mortal to comprehend it. Now that his deity had shown himself vulnerable, the monarch tried to get some more information. The deity did not answer and decided to get to the point. It's a crucial moment, Reginaldo, do you understand? Yes, my lord. The spider's web is ready, but not complete. What do you mean? Sometimes to win you have to sacrifice what you want the most. I understand it, my lord. There is any doubt or question about it? No, Jumel has served our interests well, he will not hesitate to sacrifice himself. I see you don't quite understand it. He must not know. How? For a hoax to be perfect, almost everyone involved must believe it to be true. That is why he must know nothing of our true objective. So why does my lord tell me? I want to know how loyal you are. On my return only those who are truly worthy will be rewarded. Reginald I opened his eyes and spat out the black stone, leaving it on the table. There in front of him, watching him, was as always his faithful Jumel, inseparable for more than 40 years. Sacrificing him would be a great loss. But the ultimate goal was far more important than Jumel's life, his own, or the lives of all the inhabitants of Arceo if necessary. Well, my lord. Let's get everything ready. I'll leave for Bordalania in a week. Tanya Gemenegra was vomiting as a result of exhaustion. And it was not easy to achieve, since the dwarf was used to the training of the Legion of the Brothers of Danka Atar. But this was insane. You couldn't train that way until exhaustion, and he did it every day before dawn. Sometimes Aris accompanied him, rarely the truth, and he could keep up with Agnorok, but she barely managed to complete many of the routines. Whenever the dwarf made an extreme effort, the deformed areas of her face hurt unbearably, a stabbing pain that penetrated to the brain. Something that left him breathless, but the half-orc seemed not to understand it and kicked her in the butt to spur her on. You have to get up, Tanya. I can't, I'm exhausted. But the half-orc did not understand the dwarf's complaints and incorporated her. Tanya could not handle the sword, besides it was a weapon that she hardly used. She was used to the double-edged compound axe, the traditional weapon of the dwarfs. I don't want to. You don't want to. This is not about wanting to or not. One day life will force you to fight, and that day you will be tired, sick, hurt and sleepless. Your opponent, however, will be rested and will only seek one thing, to defeat you. That's not fair. What does justice and honor matter in the end? Dying without honor makes no sense. But you die anyway and the other will win. Honor will matter little, except for those who mourn you in the grave. Tanya remained silent. In the end the half-orc was right. Perhaps the victories in the massacre in the blood mines or the final victory on Burning Hill had been just. Did anyone care about the form? No, what counted was only the victory. We had to win no matter what. The dwarf became emboldened and launched a furious attack on the mercenary. But it was a desperate and unreasoned attack. It was very easy for Agnorok to dodge the dwarf's greatsword, and then trip it up and throw it to the ground. The fight ended with the edge of the half-orc's sword on Tanya's neck. Never stop thinking with your head, dwarf. He made a small wound in her neck, before walking away. Tanya sat up slightly. You're a son of a bitch. Tomorrow you will rest, you need it, you deformed dwarf. Tanya spat on the ground and began to slam the earth. I'm sick of this shit. Why am I not dead? I'm just a puppet for everyone to laugh at me. He heard a gentle smile from someone approaching from behind. What are you laughing at? Do you want me to punch you in the face? It was Arian who sat next to the dwarf. Tanya blushed. She thought he was a mercenary, not a Laban's priestess. You remind me of someone. The priestess spoke while giving some water to the dwarf, who drank it greedily. Who? To him. The dwarf fell silent. Have you known him for a long time? A while ago, we met Gosberg in a place far from here. I can ask you something, Arian. Yes, right. Why did they save my life? The priestess smiled and gently stroked on the dwarf's deformity, the caresses soothing the dwarf's pains. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Arian got up and left Tanya alone with her doubts. Agnorok had finished bathing after training. Being captain, he had a small room for himself, nothing special. Space at the company's headquarters was highly coveted, especially after the success of the Iron War. Even so, he was allowed to have a bed, a trunk, and a desk with a chair where he could write something. He looked at his almanac and smiled. He only had 1 year left on his contract with the company. Right now he could buy his freedom with the soldier and the spoils of war. But what the hell, it was only a year and he needed all the savings possible if he wanted to retire in Vale Nevodo. That was his plan. Retreat into Snowvale and forget Shanaris and all its wars. He was the son of the goddess of death, and he had not been asked. Agnorok had decided his destiny. No matter how much the gods wanted, this half-orc would retire to the mountains to die in peace for the years that his mother granted him to exist. Besides, things were very quiet. The Iron War seemed to have left the kingdoms very soft. As always, there were some conflicts, of course, but of little importance. It would be a very quiet year, and even De Boek did not seem very worried. He had everything he wanted for his company, Plenty of gold in the trunks and great reputation, it was considered without a doubt as the best mercenary company in Almera. In the war he had defeated the other companies, now no one would doubt who were the best. Many mercenaries hired for the war were discharged, only those necessary to cover the casualties remained, although they received their full salary plus a generous gratuity. And as always happened with many of them, when they left the company they had offers from the other companies in Almera. Now the number of mercenaries was around 800 and by the next year many contracts were expiring, so the number would be reduced by half. That is why De Boeck did not accept high-level commissions either. He had to manage the company's transition and surely leave it in the hands of a competent successor. Rumors began to spread inside the barracks, but honestly Agnorok didn't care, since in the end the founding partner would not leave the company and was actually the one in charge, a small and mischievous Denka. So you want to retire within a year? Agnorok raised his head. Gosberg was lying on his bed smoking quietly. What's the matter? There are no more unconscious rascals who allow themselves to be fleeced in Almera. I've been here for a long time, people already know me. The same trick can't work for eternity. At the moment it works well. Agnorok closed the little notebook in which he was writing his thoughts and looked at the Denka with some disdain. It's a good plan to retire, but do you think they'll let you? I don't serve any king, I don't have a family, I can do whatever I want once my contract ends. Don't have a family? There was a certain sarcasm in the tone of the Denka's question and that made Agnorok rectify his argument. I don't have family to take care of. Gosberg sat up from the bed and advanced to the table with some elegance. I understand you perfectly, I'm tired of this too. Are you tired? Don't with me. In the end everything is boring, I hope your wish comes true sooner or later. The Denka left the room, the half-orc shook his head, people when they have nothing to do become very strange. He opened his notebook again to continue writing. There was a knock on the door. Agnorok sighed, for what seemed to have dawned convoluted today. Agnorok. It was Kritus who called him startled, which was not very normal in the veteran dwarf of the Brown Hills. What's going on, Kritus? You don't know. All of Almera is revolutionized. Why? An elven warship is approaching the harbor. The half-orc calmly closed the notebook again, he should have suspected it. Gosberg appears and now this could not be a coincidence. Damn Denka. He always laughs at us. The half-orc muttered to himself. Let's go to the port to see what they want. The dwarf and the half-orc went to the port like all of Almera, an elven ship of war. It had never happened in the entire Age of the Damned. The elves did not mix with men, perhaps with kings on specific occasions. But for a warship to anchor in Almera was as rare as seeing a dwarf give gold to the poor. The ship caused admiration. When sailing it seemed to float on the water. It was similar to that of Captain Lasgama, although with a much more polished design and larger dimensions. Anchored in the middle of the bay, a smaller boat came out of the ship, an auxiliary boat, but with an impeccable design. To everyone's amazement, he easily arrived at the port and docked without problems. The crowd stood near the boat from which 3 elves disembarked. By the banner of the sail it was known to which kingdom they belonged, Bordalania. The symbol of his banner was very beautiful, a waterfall, and above it the palace of the heavens left no room for doubt. The elves did not even flinch at the crowd of people, and without looking at anyone they began to walk. The people left them a wide space to maneuver, while they followed them expectantly, and those who for whatever reason were not aware, when they saw the crowd appear they left their chores and began to observe the procession. Never having been to Almera, the elves were very good and reached their target without problems, the headquarters of the Blue Phoenix Company. Agnorok assumed it, and Kritus could only murmur, "What is going on?" The elves entered the company's headquarters under the astonished gaze of the mercenaries who were on guard. Evidently the crowd intended to do the same as the elves, but that was not the case as the guards immediately prevented them from passing. Protests began to emerge about this decision. Agnorok had to take action on the matter by ordering many mercenaries of the company who were in the crowd to make a protective cordon to prevent the assault of the crowd. But deterrence appeared in person. A huge Denka more than 3 meters high appeared for the dead with the face of few friends. Its mere presence made the spirits relax quite a lot, and most decided that sooner or later they would find out what the elves wanted. But not everyone left. The rest of the mercenary companies left men stationed around the headquarters to keep an eye on everything that happened inside the building. Information was crucial. When Agnorok arrived at the courtyard, the bewilderment was great. Tanya was together with the Kendali, who as always took care of Oriana. Agnorok, elves? Yes, I've seen them before. They have requested to meet with Dabok. Aris came out of the main building looking for Agnorok and beckoned him to come closer. Come on, Agnorok, as captain you have to be present. Do you know what happens? No idea. I think the one who knows the most about this is Arian. They arrived at Dabok's office, which was full of people. Apart from the 3 elves who were standing, were the captains of the company Loranthas, Silkari, Kush, Aris and Agnorok. There were also, although they were not captains, Arian and of course Gosberg, who as always did what he wanted. No family Loranthas. The half-elf mercenary greeted the visitors in his native language. No family. The elf replied dryly. No one noticed that the way the elf replied to Loranthas was considered an insult. Well, no one, except the other member of the mercenaries who knew elf. Debiarm, no family Debiarm, Imaloa Sabe Ligor Albayam Dask. It was Gosberg who was seriously speaking to the elf. The elves opened their eyes in surprise. They didn't expect someone to address them like this. What has happened? Dabok asked Gosberg. Nothing. The traditional thing is that when you greet in elf it corresponds to the greeting and the name as Antheras. If you respond only with the greeting it means that you are not a worthy being. I've just reminded Debiarm that he's here as a guest, and if he doesn't show respect, it'll be the last words he says. The elf smiled. My apologies, Loranthas, we did not mean to offend. My apologies, Master Gosberg, His Mistral Majesty has already warned us about you, and I think that is an understatement. That old elf is still alive. How old is he? 7,000 years. Do you really not have health ailments? No, he has iron health, although it is true that even for an elf he has a long life. Do you know King Mistral 18? Asked Dabok. A long time ago we did some business. Dabok sighed, with whom Gosberg has not interacted. In short, he did not have much to add. So the veteran mercenary regained control of the meeting. I don't think you came all the way here to insult one of my captains and reminisce about old adventures with Gosberg. The middle elf smiled, and from one pocket he removed a sealed envelope which he handed to Dabok. We would like to have an answer as immediate as possible. The first payment is a chest of gold from the First Age that will be disembarked the moment you accept. We will wait for the answer at the port. Good morning. The elves didn't comment on anything else, and as soon as they delivered the letter they left the room to everyone's surprise. Suddenly the attention was focused on the envelope. The paper had a touch an ivory color. Only a sealed seal stood out that was not the coat of arms of King Mistral. It was a totally different glyph. I can't believe it. Kush exclaimed. Neither did I never believed that it would become true. Arian added. Agnorok looked at the priestess. Explain yourself. Well, when I liberated Turkheimak from the Accursed, I received a letter from the King of the Elves, in which he congratulated me and reminded me of the role of the priests of Elabin in the wars against the demons. The Council of Ages. Kush was one of the few who recognized the glyph. Is this the glyph of the Council of the Ages? Agnorok asked. The wars against the demons, when the demons were banished to Itzamir, the last time the council was formed to defeat them. Gosberg replied as he approached Dabok. Wasn't the last time before the curse of Turkheimak? Silkari asked, a little lost. Look at the 4 symbols: elves, men, dwarfs, and orcs. Dabok showed the glyph to the rest. Last time the orcs did not fight. Aris pointed out. Nor do I believe that the orcs will fight now. Agnorak snapped. To everyone's expectation, Debok opened the letter, written in common language, although with a somewhat peculiar handwriting to which it was difficult for him to adapt a little. What does the letter say? Calm everyone. I'm reading it before I read it out loud. Gosberg was too impatient to wait, so he sprang up to steal the letter from Debok and climbed on the table. He coughed twice to clear his voice. Dear Arian, High Priestess of Elaban, Lady of the Blue Jewel, Liberator of Turkheimak. Shannari's smile. This elf king is a bit of a ball and flatterer. If you don't continue reading, we'll impale you right here. In the face of threats, the Denka resumed reading the letter. As you well know, we are aware of your incredible feats as well as those of your companions, the company of the Blue Phoenix. An evaluative pause, everyone was in expectant silence. I am obliged as the Elf King of the Palace of Heaven to convene the Council of Ages. By freeing Turkheimak from its curse, events will occur that may endanger the future of all Sharnaris. For this reason, everyone's collaboration is necessary to stop the threat that looms over our beloved world. That is why I pray that you will mediate with the company to come to Sharnaris as soon as possible for a meeting of the council. It would be of great help if apart from the High Priestess of Elaban there were also all her companions who unmasked the Grand Master of the White Robes last decade. To compensate for the possible prejudices that this extraordinary call may cause, they have as a payment a chest with gold from the First Age to counteract the possible losses of their magnificent company. I look forward to your soon arrival in Bordalania. My most pleasant greetings. King Mistral 18. Having said this, Gosberg threw the paper to Debok, who reread the letter to confirm everything that had been told by the Denka. The King of the Elves summons us to his palace. This can't be happening. The elves never ask for help. The Council of Ages. A chest of gold from the First Age. Everyone was too surprised, many had to take a seat. Debok valued the offer, very generous. Well, we have to see what is done. From what the letter says, they want an immediate response. The veteran mercenary initiated an impromptu vote among his trusted people, addressing Arian first. Arian, the lady in the blue jewel. What do you think? We would have to go, at least to hear what they want to say. It can be important. For Debok the problems of the elves were often too strange and complicated. Something inside him was reluctant to accept the proposal of the elves. We are mercenaries, as long as they don't drop gold, as if Sharnaris is going down a sinkhole. Agnorak spoke very unconvinced. They have dropped a chest of gold right off the bat, without asking. Debok replied. Loranthas. It is an honor that they call us and they also pay us in advance, we should go. Silkuri. Without hesitation, those called up should go. Kush. The Council of Ages is not convened for a trivial matter, you have to go to find out what threatens Sharnaris. Now, although the decision had already been made, since most of the captains accepted the commission, the opinions of the two captains of Orcish blood were missing, and the question of going to the Palace of Heaven should not be very amused. Earnest money? In that palace they showed the great king of the elves my father's severed head. There it was exposed until it rotted on the pike of a spear. But I think I'll be able to control myself. Arian squeezed her husband's hand, she was proud of her answer. Agnorak. We should not accept the proposal. Everyone was shocked by the other half-orc's refusal. Why? We are mercenaries, not heroes, we don't have to save the ass of elves and wizards for their problems. My father always said that the heroes were those who dedicated themselves to saving the princess. But we had to kill bandits and find treasure. We should continue with what we are good at. Come on, Agnorok, we have accepted very similar orders. This matter gives me a bad feeling. Never trust an elf, and if he is a king, less so. You say that because you are an orc. I am a half-orc. I have the intuition that accepting this mission is a big mistake. Let's go, Agnorok. Aris has many more reasons than you to be suspicious and has accepted. I can't refuse to go, but I think we're going to regret this. The half-orc would not give in, but he would not refuse to go. It was the turn of the founding member who in the end, as always, had the last word. Gosberg. I think Agnorok's words are the wisest. Never trust an elf king, but on the other hand, as they say in the north, if the troll wants to reach you, no matter how much you run, he will end up catching you. So we must go. Don't worry, Debok, I'll see to it that those of orc blood behave in the palace of heaven. Debok leaned back in his seat, thoughtful. Those of you who were in Tripulia plus Loranthus, who is a half-elf, will go. Gosberg added something else to Debok's decision. The dwarf will accompany us. The dwarf. That's right. In the letter it expressly stated that only those of you who participated in Tripulia were there. What does it matter, a dwarf or two? Now they will know how many of us we were more than 10 years ago. The veteran mercenary didn't know what to say, but if Gosberg said he wanted the dwarf on the trip, he wouldn't object to his decision. Go now. Start preparing the things you need for the trip. I will write the answer for the elves and it will be taken by Loranthus, who, as she has elf blood, I think is the right interlocutor. So they all retired to their chambers to begin the preparations for the journey. The news spread like wildfire, first through the company's barracks and then throughout Almera. The great king of the elves hired the services of the Company of the Blue Phoenix, a totally unheard of event in the entire history of Almera.